Well, welcome everyone to our Kepler College Astrology Book Club author Q&A. My name is Misty Lane and I'm your book club admin. And I'm here today with Carmen Turner-Schott and Bernie Ashman, authors of our October Book of the Month, Astrology's Magical Nodes of the Moon, Releasing the Past and Embracing the Future. Carmen is a practicing licensed clinical social worker, astrologer, writer, and teacher with national and international clientele. She's worked with victims of trauma for over 25 years in her work. And
Wow.
since 2010, she has managed several Facebook astrology groups that have over 50K members from all over the world. And that is how I first learned about Carmen and her work. And she lives, like she said, in Troy, Illinois. And then Bernie is the author of several astrology books. He's written two best-selling past life books, and his most popular books, How to Survive Mercury Retrograde, is considered by many to be the best book written on Mercury retrograde cycles. He is a professional astrologer serving clients internationally, and his insightful interpretations have also been utilized for astrology software programs used worldwide and now produced by Cosmic Patterns in the US. That's cool. And he lives in North Carolina. And as always, I will be keeping an eye on the chat. So if anyone watching has any questions along the way or had any questions tucked in their back pocket for this, please type it into the chat and we will get them answered. But Carmen and Bernie, thank you so much for joining us today. And let's just start from the beginning. How did you two meet and get acquainted and get to this point where you wanted to write a book together?
Sure. I could start if you want me to. I actually found Carmen through her Facebook groups, and
Ah.
we just started connecting. And as time went on, we realized that we had a lot of the same approach to astrology. Um, and I've never co-authored a book before. I never really wanted to until I met her. And our writing style is very similar in a lot of ways. So, the funny thing is, we had the book edited here in North Carolina first before we sent it over to London. That's where it was published for the final edit. And the editor knows me really well and it edited a lot of stuff for me. And she said after she finished editing the book, she said, I couldn't tell who wrote which chapters. She said, you guys are just so alike. It's amazing. I said, well, that's why I enjoy writing with her. And we just communicated so well back and forth, looking at each other's writing. So,
Yeah.
but it all began when I got into her eighth house group and her 12th house group because I really felt right at home there because of my own chart setup. So, and it was just very stimulating to be in those two groups in particular. So that's how we actually met and got this whole thing rolling.
Yeah,
It's been quite amazing.
it's been fun.
Wonderful.
I
So
remember
yeah,
Bernie.
Carmen's groups have connected her to a lot of people, it
Yeah.
seems.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was fun because I remember I was living in Germany in like 2013 to 2015 and Bernie and I were writing back and forth and I remember way back then Bernie was trying to convince me to write and try to publish a book. Back then he was my mentor and he was encouraging me and he had read my eighth house book which I had self-published was out there and he had really was supportive of me of getting into my writing again, but it took till what 2021, Bernie, before I really started writing books, really.
Yes.
So it's
Yeah.
a little while, but he helped me so much. So and we're already, we love to write together, so we're already planning another book, we're just trying to get the time to we're gonna do another book together. Yeah, we got a little idea, so that's coming in the future, but right now we're marketing this Astrology's Magical Nodes of the Moon, and we both have like similar views on it and just insights that we both have seen with our clients. So love to just share with what we see. I kind of made a little cheat sheet later of the nodal pairs of just some keywords and key issues that I feel people are learning, and then we can talk
Hmm.
about whatever the listeners want to talk about, if they're chatting or not. I can't see in the chat what they're saying, but
Yeah, wonderful. We have no one chatting right now. But if anyone feels like getting chatty in the chat box, please just let us know. Write a comment. What sign do you have your North Node in? And then I'll keep an eye on that. We can get into it.
Okay.
Okay.
It was interesting for Carmen and I, because we realized right away our nodes of the moon are opposite each other.
Yes.
Like she's the North Node in Scorpio, South Node in Pisces, and I'm the North Node in Taurus and the South Node in Scorpio. I think I got those right. So she has the exact opposite setup that I do with her South Node in Taurus.
Flip nodes. Yeah, flip nodes.
Yeah. So
it's cool because I feel like I click with people that have the same nodes as me or the opposite nodes. And my daughter is also the same nodes as Bernie. And it's kind of like we're helping each other on our soul mission, our spiritual path. Like we're here to learn from each other. You're learning what I've done, and I'm learning what you've mastered. So it's like this balance. So it's really cool.
Yeah.
That is so fun. It's kind of like you're going where I've already been, so I can help you get there.
I need some tips.
That's
I need
fun.
some tips, help me here,
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's been really fascinating. I know when I first got into astrology with the nodes of the moon, I just had a real strong attraction to really wanted to get a deeper understanding of them, because in a way they're just so evolutionary, and each person's opposite setup has so many nuances in it that it's not like it just means one thing, which I always found very interesting in itself. When I first got into astrology, it was really popular to say the North Node was really something to focus on, and the South Node was something to avoid. But you can't avoid it, because there's the past life patterns in it. In a way, you're trying to just tune into those, and that's what we tried to cover in the book, the way we did it. So I've actually learned a lot from the South Node in Scorpio in my eighth house. I think it really helped me bond with my clients, and just get a deeper understanding of what I'm doing here in the first place. So it's kind of fascinating, the setup each person has.
Yeah.
And if anybody even has a question tonight about a transit, like going over a node, that would be okay too. It doesn't have to just be the basic stuff, because Carmen and I have worked so much with astrology over the years that we wouldn't mind, answering other questions if people have them. So.
And while reading this book, I did really appreciate your perspective on the nodes. And especially as I broaden my astrological studies, I've been encountering this discombobulation of like, oh my gosh, people are saying one thing over here, and then they're saying another thing over here. And then I like that you took the middle ground with the node. So I'll hear people be like, oh, that North Node, it represents this unattainable thing that you're striving for, and that following it will like make you miserable. Or then I'll see someone who's like, no, you have to reach your North Node destiny and leave everything of the South Node behind. And
Right.
in your book, you're very much like, you can use those South Node skills to get to the other end. And I just really loved that perspective. And in your own experience, how have each of you worked with your own nodes in trying to follow that North Node, but using those South Node skills?
Carmen, do you want to go for it?
Sure. Yeah, when I first started studying astrology, I'll be honest, I didn't realize how important the nodes of the moon were. I would say maybe 12 years ago is when I really started realizing it, because I started feeling my North Node. And so the way it affected me was, I always knew I had the North Node in Scorpio, and that kind of scared me, right? When you read stuff, and it's same thing like you said, Misty, I would find all these different opinions about it, and I thought, how am I ever going to be a Scorpio? And because I felt so different than that, and I thought, I'm never gonna be a Scorpio. Like, I knew I needed to embrace those traits, that I was such a Taurus girl. So as I got older, that's when the nodes started opening up, and I started feeling that Scorpio North Node pull. So then I realized it doesn't matter what we do, in my opinion, we are all going to start naturally moving towards our north node. It's not something that you are like avoiding, or you're going to feel it. And that's what happened to me. I started feeling this Scorpio energy. I started feeling very different than how I was my whole life. Like my whole personality was really a death and rebirth, so to speak, that Scorpio change where I'm like, okay, wait a minute. I feel anger. Like I never felt angry in my whole life. I was a 12th house sun, right? So I started feeling this Scorpio energy. And I remember I went through a lot of these life experiences that I believe awaken us to our North Node. And I believe all the karma and all the things that we go through are getting us on the path of why our soul chose to come here and be born when we were born, because the chart is the map of our soul. So I knew that my soul wanted to be a Scorpio and learn that and embrace it. And so I remember I had all these really intense things happen, and this was like 2018. It wasn't very long ago even. And I was walking and I was really emotional, and I said, I was like, saying in a prayer, why is this happening to me? Why is things so hard? Why? And this voice in my head said, how else will I ever make you a Scorpio? And at that moment,
Oh.
it was so deep, like, oh my gosh. Like I started laughing and then I was crying. And that's the moment I realized, if you don't, as a Scorpio North Node, you have to experience pain. And that's I realized I have to experience loss. I have to experience grief. I have to experience intense situations, intense emotions, or life changes. And that's the whole thing of getting out of the rut of comfort that Taurus likes and allowing change. And so that's the first time that I finally said, I am going to do everything I can to become a Scorpio. And so I try to learn from Scorpios. And that's the funny part. I track Scorpio people. So I'm like, okay, I want to be like you. Tell me how not to care and just to cut off my emotions. Like I want to do it. Like, like I'm like a worrier. I'm like feeling guilty and I'm always feeling people's pain. And I'm like, I want to be like boundaries, like self-protection, right? And so I try to get tips. That's what I recommend. So I always recommend to people, if interact and meet people and read everything you can about your North Node sign, because and get comfortable with it. That's what I started doing, and I do it every day. And everyone in my office that I work with is a Scorpio or a Taurus. I am not kidding right now in my work. And I'm like, that is not by chance. So I am learning, and I learned the things that annoy me about certain people are in me. They're the Taurus stubbornness, or this believing we're always right, or we don't want to change because we like comfort. So I'm realizing I got to do that, and I try to live it each day. What can I do to let go of the past, release things that aren't serving me? All those traits of these nodes are about the Taurus Scorpio nodes. I feel me and Bernie, we both have them, is all about letting go, forgiving, healing, and balancing fears of change with letting change come, right? It's like all about that, and letting yourself go through emotional, mental, physical rebirths throughout your life. Like it's constant with the nodes in Taurus and Scorpio growth. It's the nodes of growth, in my opinion. So it can be a little painful. I'll be honest. When people ask me, well, what nodes are the hardest nodes? People, I'll say, in my opinion, the two nodal pairs, in my opinion, and Bernie can share his, I feel are Aries, Libra, and Taurus, Scorpio nodes. To me, those are the most
I am
difficult.
Aries Libra over here.
Oh, yeah.
And you know why?
That's funny.
Because it's karma in relationships. It's karma with love and relationships, partnership, people, other people, which is a big part of life. That's why it can be challenging, right? Self-reliance with being dependent, having a relationship with having freedom. So it's like you're learning this, right? And with Scorpio Taurus, it's growth, it's the nodes of healing your pain, healing your trauma, overcoming and being resilient. So that means life isn't going to be that easy for certain nodal pairs. They're going to have some key challenges that they chose to master. And so then when you start looking at all the nodal pairs, you can feel the energy shift. Each of them has an energy. And so I'm like, Gemini, Sag, it's a light energy. It's fun, right? Leo, Aquarius, that's good. Then Taurus, Scorpio, Aries, Libra, you can feel that there's a little bit more of a growth with those nodes, is the way I explain it. But I'll turn over to Bernie and see what he.
Wow, a lot of that sounded familiar because I have just the opposite setup.
Yeah.
I was kind of lucky in a way. Looking back on it, I didn't realize it right away, but my mother was a sun sign Taurus. And I think it helped me connect before I even got into astrology about that particular sign. I was just a real quiet kid for a long time. It took me a while into my 20s. And I got into astrology around the age of 24. And it was then, as I got more into it and started looking at some of these setups I had with the South Node in Scorpio, it started to really make sense why at one time I couldn't come out of myself. So it just took some time for that to happen. But sometimes it's what you get into can really save your life or just really uplift you. And the passion of Scorpio is a powerful thing because I know when I got into writing, it really came through me, that South Node that I have. It was the intensity of that experience, felt like a rebirth. It really did. It seems like every time I write a book, whether it's with Carmen or have done it, it presents kind of a rebirth experience. I know musicians say that, other creative people say that, and I can understand why, because it puts you through a lot. I remember the first book I wrote was Astrological Games People Play. It just went into a second edition a while back. And I was scared to death when I got the book contract because I had never finished a book. I had sent them a few chapters with an introduction, and I still had another 9 chapters to go. I was so relieved when I finished it. I had a very understanding editor in San Diego. It was Astro Communications was their name at the time in San Diego. And they were a smaller publisher. I'm kind of glad I started with them. So, but these nodes, since they're opposite each other, just like when you have a 2 planets in opposition in your chart, relationships just really rev it up. They bring it out of you, whatever it is, whatever type it is. I also have a moon opposed Neptune in my chart, and that intuitive side of me really got developed when I got into astrology pretty much. I was always sensitive, but I never understood what it meant until I started to understand what some of the writings of Carl Jung and different people really helped me understand the depth of astrology. I know it was a Dane Rudyard book in the 70s that got me into astrology. And he was the one that said, astrology is a language. If you understand that language, you can read the sky. And that's basically what astrologers do and try to translate it to a person. And people here tonight probably have their own interpretations of how their nodes work in their life. But it's pretty intense to go along a life path. Sometimes
that it is.
It really is. I did an interview a while back for International Astrology Day in Italy, and person in Italy interviewed me, and we were just talking, and she said, "What makes a good astrologer?" I said, "Sometimes an astrologer has to go through a Saturn return. They have to have some cycles themselves. Maybe they have to have a Pluto go over one of those nodes, or it's not that they want to be destroyed in the process, but it is deepening when you go through cycles for certain aspects, whether they're Saturn returns or other things. I think it really starts to get you to understand your nodes of the moon just even deeper. So, but it really is a soul-oriented experience to tune into the nodes. I've always felt so valuable.
I would like to touch on the more soul-oriented nature of the nodes, especially. So, a key theme in your book is about past lives and how that South Node really represents what we're bringing in from our past lives. And that just made me curious, what are both of yours experiences with working with past lives, with connecting to your own past lives? And then how have you, I guess, in your own past life work or what you've learned from your past lives, how have you seen that reflected in that South Node?
Carmen, do you want to do you want to go?
Sure. It's really interesting because this kind of brings up the issue of what house the nodes are in. So for me, the South Node is in the ninth house. And so I always wanted to learn. I love to learn. I love to read. I love to learn everything. And I'll start one book and then go on to the next book, right? So that's how I always was. But I never, I read, about travel and all these things. Well, I grew up in Midwest. Okay. I had never been out of Missouri really. And I never expected to ever marry a military guy, when I was 23 years old. And we were married like 6 months and said, "Oh, you got orders to Germany." And I'm thinking, what? And I knew astrology, but I never really
Wow.
connected it with living in a foreign country. This is so ninth house, right? This is South Node here. And
Mm-hmm.
traveled all over the world, never thought that would ever happen. Went everywhere ever wanted to go, Egypt, Turkey, you name it. And I did all of this, and I realized in my early 20s, this was my South Node. Because I always felt at home in Europe, when I go in the churches and I would look at, I was like, I've been here before. Like I always felt like I've been here before, and also, be in the house of religion, philosophy, and all that. That was my minor. I love religions. And I almost became a nun, which is totally my South Node in the ninth house because I wasn't even raised Catholic, right? And so all of these things, like I'm like, why am I wanting to be a
Funny.
nun? And I had memories of being a nun. Like I remember being a nun. Like I love Catholic art, Catholic icons, like they're all over my house. I'm like, why do it's like it's home for me. And
Mm-hmm.
so I had memories of that, and that led to really verifying, okay, my soul has traveled, my soul loves religion and philosophy and all these things. And I've studied and learned things. And then it kind of clicked with me. I'm meant to this lifetime now. I know I'm meant to share knowledge on a basic level. So something shifted in me, like I want to teach astrology to people so everyone can understand it and love it and make it very basic and simplistic. So that's kind of what I've always tried to do since I started being an astrologer, is explaining things in a very like symbolic, emotional soul way. Like these are the energies, these are the experiences, making it very like a counseling session, really, like a therapy
Mm-hmm.
session. And so that's kind of what I know I'm meant to do through the third house, is talk, write, teach. I love to teach. I love to write. I love to do these things now. But before it was kind of like I didn't know that I wanted to do that. I didn't know that I had a desire to do that, or a talent in doing that or whatever. So now I do that not just in astrology or my spiritual work, but I do that in my normal job. I do a lot of virtual, computer technology, teaching, training. It's all third house. Writing, communicating with people, and so that's what I'm feeling like I'm in my house, North Node, third house energy, and I'm trying to be a Scorpio with it, which is what digging deep, helping people heal. And I work with trauma survivors, which I think some of that is that North Node in Scorpio playing out, and it's a lot of like crisis intervention, giving advice, consulting with people on how to help people, and that's kind of what I do. Is a lot of I'm on the phone all day. So this is third house North Node, and
Yep.
I'm talking about very deep private
Exactly.
information. Like I was on the phone last night for 4 hours with someone, and I'm not kidding.
Wow.
It was a work call, and my husband's like, "You're all
Oh,
at work," and I'm like, "But I'm working." Like so, he doesn't know if I can talk as much, but I like to talk. So I could talk all day to people. So this is third house North Node, right, in Scorpio, and it has to
Funny.
be deep though and meaningful conversations. I don't
oh
like
yeah.
superficial talk. I like deep talk. So, but no, that's my past lives and the memories I had and the deja vus and everything kind of led me to realizing that astrology is fact and the nodes don't lie. the house the nodes are in is also very important. And that's where that energy is going to play out into the world, in my opinion. And I can see it in my own life right now. So I keep hoping to keep staying in my North Node in that third house and keep writing books, keep doing the stuff that, Bernie and I are doing, because I want to master my nodes. I want to get it right. You know what I mean? I don't want to
You're
come
doing
back.
pretty good.
Again, but I guess we choose to come back anyway, is what I think. We don't think of it that way, but I'd like to get it right, so
Yeah.
I'll turn it over to Bernie.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, that was interesting. My South Node's in Scorpio, and it's in the 8th house. So I have that repeating theme of number 8,
Yes.
with the North Node's in the 2nd house in Taurus. So it's been intense. I mean, I can't sugarcoat it. Earlier in my life, especially. But as it went on, I started to see that the rebirthing process is real. It's not just an intellectual concept you have. You actually get some kind of transformation. And I think that's what happened for me more than once. I think I've really been able to help other people understand their own relationships. Because if you think about the 8th house, it's where a lot of it comes together for people. It's your joint emotions with people, resources, the passion. It could be the sexual energy, the whole package, the money you share, and whatever. And I noticed I got really good at helping people understand their own karmic patterns. Because I think the 8th house had a lot to do with it, because it's such a research-oriented house. Yeah. So I knew I came here to have some in-depth connections with people. There's a lot about privacy with the 8th house and with Scorpio. So I noticed I could be a very private person, but I also wanted to get to connect with some people on a pretty deep level. I minored in psychology in college. I majored in political science, but it was psychology that really had a pull on me. I remember I had a teacher who died early at the University of Florida, and he wrote a book called The Transparent Self. And it always interested me how you could open up. That's what he talked about. And, when you ask like what we go through with the South Node, I'm sure it's different for each person. For me, I had to get over some fear of closeness with people at one point. Maybe a couple points. It can be scary. People have told me that sometimes it's just scary to them to be in a relationship. Trust is a big deal about the 8th house, and Scorpio both, because there's a tendency to pull away when you don't trust somebody. So I learned how to decipher who to let close to me and who not to. And I realized if I don't let anybody get close to me, this is going to be a tough life. So I think I came here to learn how to just be there for other people too. Because when you're an emotional partner, you have to learn how to be supportive. Yeah. So, and I really enjoyed that, being with the wife I have had for, God, we've been together for 40 years. It's hard to believe. And I feel lucky. I'm a lucky guy. Her nodes are Gemini, Sagittarius. And boy, when we first got together, if I wouldn't say what was on my mind, believe me, on me to tell her, what do you think inside that head of yours, Bird?
Yes.
So she's good.
That's an interesting dynamic. You're over here wanting to be like that Scorpio, private, protective, and she's just pushing. You don't need to do that.
Somebody just flying around me to find out, what are you thinking about, bud? Yeah, but we all have so much to learn in a lifetime. I'm sure everybody would agree with that.
Oh yes,
it's amazing. Yeah, so I'm just glad to have found this particular path. But there's all kinds of people that come to us for charts now. When I first got into this in 1970s, it wasn't like that. I mean, I have doctors coming now. other kind of people that we wouldn't even think about, seeing an
Mhm.
astrologer. So it's just been a fascinating time period that people are looking for a deeper soul connection. You can tell when they have so much money, they want to know what's going on within themselves. So
Yeah.
maybe they don't have any money, but they still want to know about their, their soul growth. And I think that's what drove Carmen, excuse me, and myself to write this book,
Yeah.
because we're both so soul oriented, evolutionary, astrology oriented, but down to earth, just so people could relate to what we were saying and be a portal for people to walk in to this. Because all my books I've written have been psychologically oriented. It probably goes back to that eighth house. I felt like I was paying
Probably.
off. So, maybe it was a karmic debt of some kind. I had to come in here and do this. But it's been very enjoyable to do it. It's always interesting too when people are still stuck in the same patterns, um, that but they're tired of it. They just want to get rid of it. It's like the universe. I'll tell some clients, like, the universe is saying, maybe you ought to get rid of that now. No, I'm so used to it. I don't want to give it up yet. It just becomes ingrained in us maybe to stick with a certain pattern. Um, but you have to be careful even with the north node, because say all I do is the north node, maybe I got too comfortable. So I think the Scorpio south node was there just to intensify me to the point I would even enjoy the opposite. Taurus. I was a chocoholic as a kid. That was my entry into probably the North Node and Taurus. My mother would say, "I think you need to eat your breakfast first." So lunch. But anyway, yeah, it's quite a journey for anybody in this lifetime, and the nodes, they're a big factor for sure.
Absolutely. And I know, especially Carmen, you mentioned that, and this book is very simplistic, very beginner friendly, very down to earth, and really just the basics. It starts with like the first part, just doing a basic overview of what is astrology and how does it work, and then we get into the nodes. But I did have a question about just working with the nodes a little deeper. And so, what thoughts do you both have about, let's say, I know the nodal bending is an interest of mine. Do you work with the bendings at all?
Bendings. What do you mean by that?
So that is when a planet is squaring the nodes. And I
Yes.
know what I've explored before
Okay.
is that, like, if a planet is at the northern bending, it's that kind of an agitator to push you towards that north node. And if it's at the southern bending, it's an agitator from more of that past life
Boy,
type of
that's a good
dynamic.
question.
It's something I am just getting into. So if anyone in the chat has worked with nodal bendings before, I'd love to hear your experience with that. But like, what are your thoughts about just things like that, aspects to the nodes within the chart? What roles do those play?
I have Saturn square my nodes in my birth chart from the sixth house. And if you think of it, it operates sort of like a T square, where the trigger planet would be the planet in this case, cutting across this opposition of your nodes. And mine ends up in the 12th house, which is pretty dynamic for a spiritual search or of some sort. So it's going to, any square, even by transit to the nodes, is really important, or a conjunction to one of them. I see that a lot, and I'm sure Carmen has in the charts we've done, because I've done thousands of charts myself over the years. And yeah, it, it depends on the planet, because Saturn, yeah, it's pretty serious stuff when you're dealing with Saturn. But I had to learn how to focus. That was really important for me. And when I discovered the astrology part of myself, I could tell I had to be really committed to it, and I really was. to want to learn it, or any job that I took on. Didn't have to be astrology, but so it brought that focus out of me. If a person, say, has Uranus square the nodes, just generally speaking, they're probably going to be reinventing themselves more than once, because that's what Uranus really is a reinventive sort of planet. It's not the only meaning of it, but it's inventive at the same time. So yeah, I've worked with that a lot, with the square to those nodes. If you get specific about it, let's just say somebody with an Aries Libra opposition, and you get Pluto. It was in Capricorn for quite a while. It's still retrograde. It's for a little bit until next month. It'll go back into Aquarius again. But if you had that square for some reason because of the nodes you have, boy, that could have been a powerhouse for a rebirth of some sort. It could have been professional. Sometimes these things work that way. Somebody might have found a particular meaning in a particular profession they have. So a lot of different ways to interpret, depending on where the person is at. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, I have Uranus square my nodes on the north node bending, and so it's like,
Oh,
I have to be a little bit inventive and maybe a little bit radical
sure.
to
Oh
get
yeah, all
there.
the way. Yeah, born revolutionary. I mean, it could be, but running groups, I mean, can be a really important thing too. At the same time, because it's not all about individualism with Uranus. It can be peers and groups and whatever. That's interesting. You have that square in your chart.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you're
Always
creative.
learning more about it.
You're creative, Misty. I mean, I see your post and your art. Your art is, when I see your art, it has a
Oh yeah.
Uranian energy to it. I mean,
Yeah.
like when I'm seeing the unique and even your pictures and things you post are very artistic. But it's like it's a unique. It's not like a Pisces artistic. It's like an
It's different.
edgy, like rebel Aquarian, like
Yeah, I do like to make it kind of edgy.
yeah.
That makes sense.
And we do have several comments in the chat. So Jean, I'll just answer this myself. She wants to know if the recording will be available. Yes, the recording will be available. It will be available in the feed. So once we're done here, you can just refresh the page and head back to the group page, and you should be able to find this recording just automatically there. And we do have several people who also have North Node Scorpio.
Cool.
We have North Node Cancer, 6th house, and North Node Sagittarius.
Ooh. Wow.
And then Vinka said, I hope I said your name right. She says Pluto has been transiting 2 degrees square her natal North Node in the 6th. That sounds interesting to say the least.
Yeah. Wow.
How have you been feeling, your routine, your health, your diet, your daily activities could be completely changed, or you might want to grow and just completely do something different. It affect your day-to-day diet, exercise, people, that your service to others, your ability to serve others, or your desire to help people, or people's needing your help more. Like very transformative with Pluto.
Yeah, definitely. Boy, it's like a rebirthing setup.
Yeah.
Renewal. It could be renewal too.
Yeah,
like the end of a cycle. Maybe you're renewing from from an old cycle into something new even. So,
and this is the person, she's one of the people who has the nodal axis along Taurus and Scorpio. And she says withholding has always been a big issue of hers with this axis, as you had explored. And she says, I feel like my Scorpio husband is always hiding. That is no fun.
I can understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. boy, sometimes those shadows, when they come out,
Mm-hmm.
I wrote a poem a while back called Dancing with My Shadow. And,
Nice.
I knew it was from my Scorpio side, eighth house.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
yeah, but sometimes, with Pluto, you will get some interesting things revealed. Um, if it's in the sixth house too, it could be a new work scene for somebody.
True. True.
Um, it's possible, something they
Mhm.
want to get
Oh,
into,
yeah.
maybe.
Mhm.
A lot of
So
ways.
let's talk more about the transit. So the nodes are a big thing with the eclipses. The eclipses happen when a new or full moon happens around one of the nodes. So, what is the role of eclipses along that nodal journey, especially as they might be touching someone's chart natally? What are like if an eclipse touches someone's personal planets, um, what are your thoughts about that?
Oh, Carmen, you're good at this.
I just went through this in April of this year when we had the solar eclipse in Aries. It was in my eighth house on my Aries stellium, my moon, my Chiron, my Jupiter, and it was intense. And let me tell you, I had a death and rebirth. I had three things happen. I had three bad things and three good things. I had a car accident, all these things. My Mac crashed and I lost everything for 7 years
Oh
on my
my
Mac.
gosh.
Everything, pictures, photo, gone off the cloud. No one knows how. I was on tech support. All of it happened on the night of the solar eclipse.
I would
Wow.
cry.
I did cry. Oh, I cried. I was like, and I finally realized this is like the universe testing me. Hello, you're meant to be a Scorpio. Your eighth house are already lost. Let it go. And I'm like, what am I gonna do? I lost something. At least it was a
Wow.
I wasn't injured in the car accident. And then I burnt my finger really bad on this light. So Aries, all this intensity, right? And so yes, I feel like when there's an eclipse that hits your personal planets, I have experienced like it was very intense, emotional. Things happen. Like to me, it's noticeable. And the good thing is I feel like whenever I have three really bad things happen, when my eighth, when that was triggered, I had three good things also happen. So I feel like there's always a balance. Like I'm okay. I just went
That's
through,
good.
I'm forced to change, forced to feel some pain here, forced to lose something that was important to me, but I had to let it go. Like it's about growth, like let it go. And so I started fresh. I'm like, okay, I have nothing on my Mac. Like it's all gone. I don't even know what I lost now. And now I look back and it doesn't matter because I know, it's like it triggers and awakens the things we're meant to do. So I kind of laugh like the universe, like, okay, you're not changing, so we're just going to take something from you real quick. That's what, that's kind of like wake you up a little bit. Like, hello, you're a Scorpio North Node.
Yes.
You're in the Taurus a little bit too much here, a little stubborn girl. So anyway, that's kind of it felt like a death. Like I literally on that day, I felt like I was dying. I'm not kidding. And no one, it was because it was in my eighth house. And I was worried about it when I knew it was going to be in my eighth house. But that day I laid in bed, I physically felt sick. Physically, it affected me like major. I had the most awful migraine headache for like 3, 4 days straight.
Wow. They're rough.
And it was really and everyone kept telling me they had headaches and I was laughing because people that don't believe in this stuff, but I was like Aries. So but I survived, but I did feel completely changed after that solar eclipse went through my eighth house and was right there on my moon. I mean it was like, or the lunar, yeah, it was right there in Aries in my, yeah, anyway. So
Wow.
it
Powerful stuff.
I yeah. And when the nodes, I think another thing that I noticed, Bernie, I don't know if you noticed this and the people watching, if your nodes were in Taurus and Scorpio, how did you feel when the nodes were in Taurus and Scorpio now? Because they were there for a while, during COVID and all, and then now they're in Aries and Libra, right, till January. But
Right.
when those nodes were in our natal nodes, I don't know about you, Bernie, but I lost a lot of loved ones, a lot of friends
Uh,
passed away unexpectedly.
yeah,
Everyone around me was
I did too.
losing things and like
Yeah.
a lot of deep emotional stuff, like that eighth house Scorpio, healing. A lot of healing was happening for people. And they were thinking about things that happened like 20 years ago. All my clients were like, wanting to forgive, or, just lots of old baggage coming up during when the nodes were in Taurus and Scorpio in the sky. And now
Right.
I feel like everyone's going through relationship issues right now, because the nodes are in Aries and Libra. So there's a lot more conflict in relationships, with communicating, with, compromising, expressing your needs, right?
Right.
More people are, getting married, breaking up, or they're getting challenges in their relationships right now. So, but I know when the nodes are in the sky, or in your natal nodes, I think that's very powerful. That's when I
Yeah.
had the most change in my life. It was that 18 months or whatever. It was like very intense.
Yeah. It can also be very confirming. I mean, some people
Mhm.
say it solidified, during the return of the nodes.
Yeah.
So it probably just depends on the circumstances you're in sometimes.
Yeah.
An eclipse, some of those eclipses, some people have said it really brought out their intuition.
Mhm.
They just felt more intuitive somehow.
Mhm.
Almost had a new intuitive highway come in. So all kinds of different experiences. It seems like people go through with that setup. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I had my last several years, the eclipses have been really touching some sensitive points in my chart. So the Taurus Scorpio ones were happening along my icy midheaven axis, and that was a time that I first started my self-employment journey, and then also moved back in with my parents.
Yeah.
And then yeah, these nodes have been touching my Libra placement and all of that, and
Mhm.
I'm interested to see how the ones in Virgo and Pisces will go, because that's where a bulk of my placements are. But yeah, I
Yes.
had an interesting experience with the September 17th eclipse, where
Yeah.
I know you two have both seen pictures of my new kitten.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
I just found the eclipse is happening. I have Pisces in my third house
Okay.
and Virgo, my ninth house. And I just found this little kitten walking to
Oh.
Wow.
work, and he was just on the street. So I let very third house, and then my Pisces third house, I felt the empathy for this little kitten. So that was an interesting one where the astrology was very real, and so I am very
Wow.
interested to see how that will go once the nodes move.
Yeah.
I'll bet you are. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it can be a real release of energy,
Mhm.
is what I found. So yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
It's interesting where it might take you even when it releases like that. So,
Absolutely.
with
You
that
have
Uranus, your Uranus square to those nodes, Uranus is like a synchronicity planet. And sometimes people have had so many synchronicity experiences in their life with that setup that you have.
mhm.
So I just thought I'd throw that in there.
Yeah.
Didn't mean
Yeah,
it.
that is beautiful. I have noticed that. And Kimberly in the chat says that the April eclipse conjuncted her moon in the third house. Did you find, Kimberly, if you feel like commenting, did you have third house themes pop up around then? And then she is also just confirming that it did felt like kind of what you're saying. It felt very heightened intuition
Cool.
for her, and she was ready for new beginnings after the eclipse.
Nice.
Yeah, I do
Nice.
enjoy that post eclipse feeling of like, I got through it all. And
Yeah, really.
yeah.
That's important too. Yeah, very much so. Yeah, yeah. Nice. Any other
Wonderful.
questions coming in or
Not right now. Navinka just commented when the North Node was in Taurus last year on her natal South Node. That was a big year for her. That is
wow.
just so interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay. And
nice.
it does look like we are kind of running on time, so I will just close things out. Um,
Yeah.
Carmen and Bernie, where can people keep following you to keep up with your work and your future endeavors?
Sure.
Go
I know for me, probably I've been putting a lot of stuff on Facebook lately, and I do have a website also. So either
What's your website?
just BernieAshman.com.
Just BernieAshman.com. And
Yeah, and
on
you can,
Facebook, is it your profile or do you have a whole
it's
a
just a
Facebook
profile.
page? Okay. So
Profile.
people can add you on Facebook or follow
Yeah.
that profile?
Oh,
Okay.
sure. Yeah.
And mine is just Carmen Turner-Schott, SCHOTT.com. And then that's my website. You can find all my Facebook groups, my books on there. And then follow me on Facebook is Deep Soul Divers Astrology. Love for you to like and follow. And then my Instagram is Carmen Turner-Schott Author. That's my big ones. That's all I kind of do. So if you go to my website, I have a free gift on there, a free pop-up, a 12th house little journal, a 12th house PDF that you can download if you sign up for my
Oh,
email.
nice.
Aw.
Yeah,
That is nice.
and different
Oh,
I have different things. I offer books, giveaways, different things if you join.
cool.
So love for you guys to get our
Wonderful.
book. And yeah, if you want to learn more about the nodes, hopefully you like our book. And thanks for reading it and being a part of the Kepler, having it on the monthly book. We appreciate it.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
Absolutely. And thank you both for joining us for this Q&A, and thank you for everyone watching and participating in the chat, as well as for everyone who participated in the book club discussions throughout the month. And we do have 1 week left, so if you're still catching up, feel free to just comment in any of the discussion posts and we can continue the conversation. But for November, we are reading The Astrology of Family Dynamics by Erin Sullivan. I thought that would
Wow.
be a good book as we gear up for the holiday
Boy,
season.
she's a great one. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we'll begin discussions on that book starting the weekend of November 9th. And again, thank you to Carmen and Bernie for joining
Thank you.
us today. And I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their evening.
Appreciate
Bye.
it.
Bye, guys. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you guys.